You already know what imbalance feels like because it lives in your body like an old memory. There are mornings you wake with your chest tight, already rehearsing the day's demands before your feet even touch the floor. You jump into action with no pause, no breath, no moment to gather yourself. You run from message to meeting to task, convincing yourself that speed equals strength. And maybe, for a while, it does look like strength. People thank you for being reliable, competent, always available. But deep down, you know the cost. By evening, you're brittle, snapping at the smallest interruption, unable to sink into rest even when the work is done. Your body hums like a wire pulled too tight. That is fire without water, an energy that burns fast and burns you out. There are other days when the opposite takes over. The morning begins slowly, and you drift through it. You have visions, ideas, feelings, but no anchor. You write lists and then set them aside. You scroll, you plan, you wait for the perfect timing, but the hours dissolve like mist. You feel open but unmoored, sensitive but powerless. The day ends with very little moved forward, and you wonder why it feels like you are disappearing from your own life. That is water without fire, an energy that flows without form until it loses itself. This pendulum swing between overdrive and drift, between pushing too hard and waiting too long, is the story most of us are living. And yet, deep down, you have tasted another way. You have felt the rare moments of balance. Maybe it was in a conversation where you spoke your truth clearly, but with enough softness that the other person could stay open. Maybe it was in a project where you set a goal, worked with focus, but also gave yourself space to breathe and rest. Maybe it was in your own self-talk when you caught yourself sliding into self-criticism, paused, and spoke instead with honesty and compassion. In those moments, you felt whole, not half of yourself, not torn between extremes, but aligned. That alignment is the alchemy of masculine and feminine currents alive within you. Fire and water, action and openness, direction and devotion. When one dominates, you fragment. When they meet, you expand. The masculine current, the fire, shows itself as structure, clarity, decision, and will. It says, stand up, move forward, claim your ground. It draws lines, it makes choices, it offers direction when the path is unclear. The feminine current, the water, shows itself as intuition, creativity, compassion, and flow. It whispers, listen, soften, trust what is unfolding. It dissolves rigidity, nourishes connection, and brings devotion into what could otherwise become dry routine. Both are sacred, both are needed. Alone, each becomes distorted. Fire without water is cruelty, burnout, domination. Water without fire is passivity, avoidance, and loss of self. But when they work together, something greater appears. Structure gains soul, flow gains form. Together they generate energy that endures. The ancients knew this truth, which is why they hid it in every myth and symbol. Sun and moon, king and queen, chalice and blade, Isis and Osiris, Shiva and Shakti. These were not just stories about gods and goddesses outside of you. They were mirrors of the energies within you, reminders that real power comes not from choosing one side, but from marrying the two. The hieros, gamos, the sacred union, was never just ritual. It was a map of the human soul, and yet, in the modern world, we are trained away from this map. We are pushed toward fire until we burn, or drowned in water until we drift. We are praised for extremes, because extremes are easy to control. But wholeness, balance, union, these make you sovereign. They make you someone who cannot be manipulated by fear or seduction. A balanced person cannot be bought by the promise of rescue because they are not lost. A balanced person cannot be enslaved by endless demands because they know when to say no. That is why balance is power. And balance begins in the small daily choices you make. It begins in noticing when you are leaning too far into fire or sinking too far into water and asking what is missing here. Do I need to bring in softness, or do I need to bring in strength? Do I need to act, or do I need to rest? Do I need to speak, or do I need to listen? That one question begins the shift. That one question keeps the river within you flowing, steady and alive. The archetypes inside you reveal how balance transforms raw energy into wisdom. The warrior without water becomes harsh, swinging the blade at everything, mistaking cruelty for strength. Balanced, the warrior becomes protector, courageous yet compassionate, able to draw boundaries without losing tenderness. The nurturer without fire becomes depleted, giving endlessly until resentment simmers beneath the surface. Balanced, the nurturer receives as well as gives, remembering that no can be as loving as yes. The sage without water becomes cold, retreating into knowledge without warmth. Balanced, the sage shares insight in ways that heal, not just correct. The artist without fire stays unfinished, lost in possibility. Balanced, the artist brings visions to completion, letting the imperfect become sacred simply because it is whole. These archetypes live in you. They are not separate people. They are currents waiting for balance. When they are whole, your gifts become reliable. People can trust your presence because you are not pulled to extremes. You can trust yourself because your energy does not betray you. This balance must be practiced in daily life. Let's start with conflict, the place where imbalance often shouts the loudest. Fire alone fights to win, silencing the other. Water alone avoids, surrendering too much ground. Balanced conflict says, I will name my truth, and I will remain open. It sounds like, I respect you and I disagree, or I hear your perspective and here is mine. These words hold boundary and bridge at once. This is not weakness, it is strength with heart. In creativity, fire and water must both have a seat at the table. Fire brings the decision to start and the will to finish. Water brings the openness to explore and the intuition to follow the unexpected thread. Together, they create work that breathes. A painting, a poem, a plan, a conversation. When balance is present, it is not rigid and it is not chaotic, it is alive. In leadership, the imbalance shows quickly. Fire without water becomes tyranny, demanding results at the expense of humanity. Water without fire becomes indecision, pleasing everyone but moving nothing. Balanced leadership is clarity with humility. It sets a course, but it listens. It makes decisions, but it admits mistakes. It carries authority, but it serves. This kind of leadership earns trust because it is both strong and kind. Your own body whispers this teaching constantly. The heart beats by contracting and releasing. The lungs give life by inhaling and exhaling. Even your cells depend on rhythms of charge and rest. Life itself is built on the dance of opposites. To deny that in your soul is to deny the very structure of existence. To embrace it is to live in alignment with the truth coded into your being. If imbalance has already cost you, do not despair. Burnout, lost chances, fractured relationships, these can be mended through balance. Begin small. Choose one true decision each morning. Protect one honest pause each afternoon. End the day with one act of alignment. Send the message. Close the loop. Keep the promise. These simple acts reteach your nervous system that you can be trusted. They plant seeds of sovereignty that grow into wholeness. And when enough people live this way, the field of life itself changes. Families become safer places for children to be both strong and tender. Communities make choices rooted in both courage and compassion. Leaders shape futures that endure. Even the earth steadies, because when humans live balanced, we resonate balance back into the fabric of creation. This is why the teaching of balance was hidden. A person who carries both currents is sovereign. They cannot be manipulated by fear or seduction. They are not desperate for rescue, nor addicted to domination. They are whole, and wholeness is freedom. So let this truth sink deeper than words. You do not have to keep swinging between extremes. You do not have to burn until you break, or drift until you disappear. You were made for both currents, fire and water, strength and softness, direction and devotion. Together they are not enemies. Together they are the secret. And when you forget, as you will, return gently. Balance is not perfection, it is practice. It is returning again and again to the center that moves. Not a compromise, not a gray half-life, but a living union that breathes. So breathe with me now. Inhale, clarity awakens. Exhale, compassion expands. Inhale, courage rises. Exhale, tenderness deepens. This rhythm is yours. It always has been. Balance unlocks power, not the brittle kind that collapses under weight, but the enduring kind that carries you through storms. Not the shallow kind that conquers, but the sacred kind that creates. Balance unlocks power, and that power is already yours.